TNN proudly presents American Sports Cavalcade coverage of the 7th Annual Sears Craftsman Nationals from Heartland Park, Topeka. After 2 days of qualifying and 20-plus mile-per-hour headwinds, raceway conditions are perfect and the crowd is huge. Here we go, folks, the fastest accelerating vehicles in all the world. Now, this is a race between two drivers who had and maybe have been real contenders in the Winston Championship points chase in Top Fuel. We told you Scott Colletta leads. Well, look where Larry Dixon and Mike Dunn are, 3rd and 4th, and those positions could swap depending on how Mike Dunn does here today. In fact, Dunn qualified number 7, Ralph Shaheen, at a 480, but only a 714 in round number 1 when he won at an old-fashioned tire smoker over Jim Head. Mike Dunn, Mount Joy, Pennsylvania. Up against Larry Dixon, who qualified number 2. He's the world record holder. His qualifying number of 470 at 304, and he ran down Mike Smith in round 1 with a fairly conservative but right on 481.
3 wins this year from Mike Dunn, 4 for the young rookie Larry Dixon. This should be a great battle here in round number 2.
Oh, and Dixon leaves too soon.
Oh, and a huge fireball out of Dunn's car.
And Dunn is going to win it as Dixon with a foul start wastes a, look at this, 475 at 301.
Steve, watch the front nose, the left wing of Dixon's as he gets on the throttle. See how it tweaks? Look at it lift up and out of the lights. They've had problems with that car doing that all year, and it cost them there. And then Dunn gets so lucky. He still gets the win, even though blowing up the motor. Here's Steve.
It is phenomenal it took this long. But, Larry, you just made your first mistake. It had to come.
I mean, sooner or later, this is my rookie season, you know. I mean, I feel bad for the guys. Wes Cerny, everybody's doing a great job, and, you know, I hate to be the one to let them down.
You get a lot of pressure, though, to cut good lights from the press and from maybe some of your own teammates.
Nobody on the team ever gives me any pressure. I mean, I put pressure on myself. Whether I'm working on the cylinder heads or trying to cut a light, I want to do the best job I can.
You've had a great season. You'll have more.
Thanks a lot.
Pat Austin was a killer driver in the top alcohol category. As a matter of fact, he still is. He's won 4 Winston championships in that class. It's interesting that some of the better drivers now in Top Fuel have come from the sportsman ranks. Take a Pat Austin, take a Larry Dixon, a Corey McClanathan, and one of the other drivers that did such a magnificent job in the alcohol categories was Blaine Johnson. Austin was dominating in the funny car category. Blaine won 4 times in the top alcohol dragster category. All that has eluded him so far this year is that big first win.
Austin qualified here number 14. And in round number 1, put away Corey Mack with a nice 480, one of his best runs of the year. And we talked about Blaine Johnson in round number 1. He beat Show Amato. But let's have a look at qualify. Watch the far lane. We have liftoff. Ooh, Blaine almost blew it over. When he finally set it down, it tagged the wall, but was fairly easily repaired. Just some front end parts that they had in the trailer were used, and now it's round 2.
Oh, Johnson leads well. Oh, and the motor shuts off. So the luck for Blaine Johnson continues to sour as Pat Austin gets the win with a 517. Neither one of these drivers was real quick in the lights. It's just that Blaine Johnson was quicker with a 498. He was really starting to pull away, but as they got to about halfway, the motor just lets go and shuts off. Pat Austin struggles through to a 517 at 266 to get the win.
Anybody that tried to make a living predicting drag races would go broke in a big hurry. I'll tell you, she's riding with you today.
Well, first one we earned. You know, we run good, run our first 480 in a long time. This one we got a little bit of luck involved. But, you know, Blaine and Alan, those guys can set the world on fire at any time.
They're your best friends.
They're great people, and we'll have a little party afterwards. Whether who wins or loses, it doesn't matter.
This thing started to burn up a little bit.
Yeah, it did. It dropped the cylinder at the start, I think, and it just ate itself, so it went down track. Get a chance to get it on 8 cylinders. Maybe we can get in the 480s again and see if we can get in the semifinals for everybody.
Don't bet against that happening or not happening.
Take a win any way you can get it, and Pat Austin will do that. Here's the Budweiser King. Bernstein was the quickest car in round number 1, and he's going to go up against the current Winston points leader, Scott Colletta.
And even though Scott got lucky, remember the throttle linkage falling off in round 1, he was still furious at the end of the racetrack because round 1 was his best shot at backing up that 466 within the required 1% for not only a new national record and 20 points, but $50,000 at the Slick 50 World Record Club. In my opinion, it is too warm right now to do that, and also in my opinion, Crew Chief Dick LaHaye is not going to chance being that aggressive.
And Kalita knows that, and he's a very intense driver. And seeing that one opportunity slip by is not what he wanted. Here's Kenny Bernstein, the Budweiser King, who got through round number 1, putting away Ron Capps. He qualified number 9. Coletta qualified number 1. He beat his father, Connie. You saw that whole story early on. He qualified with that amazing 466.
In that Bernstein had the quicker time from round 1. He had lane choice near side. On board with Bernstein. Oh, what a gorgeous drag race. Scott Coletta, Kenny Bernstein run 4.76 a pair. Coletta a little slower than Bernstein. He nicked him right up at the starting line. 476, both cars over 300.
Well, you're right, Steve. It was at the starting line. A 482 reaction time for Scott, a 488 for King Kenny. Down the racetrack, look at Bernstein. Looks like he's starting to pull away, but it was the quicker reaction time that helped Scott. At 476 at 300 miles an hour for Scott. 476, 305 for King Kenny. 0.02 of a second different at the finish.
That may well have been the best side-by-side drag race of 1995. Both of you ran 476 and you won.
Awesome. I tell you what, we were pretty nervous up there not knowing, what the car was going to do and what the track was going to do, but we just had to go for it, and especially since all that oil had run before, but Dick must be psychic.
If you couldn't hear Kenny, you could certainly see him.
No, I couldn't.
You were in front of him the whole way?
I guess.
Apparently he'd know best, wouldn't he?
Well, as intense as Scott Coletta is, I think he's only focusing on what's in front of him anyway. He doesn't care about what's alongside, behind, or above, or below. He's just staring at that finish line.
A resurgent Eddie Hill in the Pennzoil car. Oh, man, he qualified really well here at 475. He's never been able to get much mile an hour out of that car. He has here. He's run as fast as 304 miles an hour. That tells you got big power. Tommy Johnson Jr. had a nice 476 in qualifying. Ran down Pat Aiken in round number 1. And here's our face cam on the Mopar Express Loop car of Tommy Johnson Jr.
Steve, you're talking about resurgent cars like Eddie Hill. How about TJ? That team is really coming on strong here in the second half of the season.
And not accidentally, that's when Mike Clover, the new head wrench, joined the operation out of Ottumwa, Iowa.
They haven't made a final round since Brainerd. There you see him right there, the new crew chief. I got a funny feeling before the season's out, we might see Tommy Johnson back in a final round.
Former Winston Top Fuel champ out of Wichita Falls, Texas. He calls it the nuclear banana. Eddie Hill near lane, TJ far side. Incredible acceleration. Darn good drag race. And it is Eddie Hill with a very calculated 4.84 second elapsed time, 301 miles an hour.
Let's take a look at the replay. This one about dead even, just 1,000th of a second difference on the reaction times. Eddie Hill got the nuclear banana running pretty strong though. Eddie just put him away with a 484 at 301. In the semis, it's Austin and Dunn, with Austin having lane choice, and Eddie Hill and Scott Coletta.
Tex, I think this thing was on the verge of smoking the tires all the way down the racetrack.
It could have been. One point down there, the clutch locked up and the front end came up, and I said, boy, this honey's making a move, and it was probably just about all that track would take, I bet you.
Pretty sweet 484 at 301.
301. We're loving that.
I like those big speeds.
I like the big speeds, yeah.
Go get them, man.
We're going to try it.
The funny cars are set to roll out next as we come back to Heartland Park right after this.
We're back to Topeka, Kansas. More NHRA Championship drag racing at the Sears Craftsman Nationals. I'm Steve Evans along with Ralph Shaheen and Bob Fry. And here come the Fuel Coupes, the funny car. That is Al Hoffman, the Western Auto Special, and this is first over 300, Jim Epler. Watch the butterflies in the fuel injector. Finite throttle control. Jim Epler, the rug Doctor Oldsmobile out of the state of Washington, up against Al Hoffman, full-time professional drag racer. He loves this racetrack. He always performs well at Topeka. Crew Chief Tom Anderson latches the body down after making some adjustments.
You know, this is really a unique pairing here, Steve, because Hoffman's had such a tremendous season, and poor Jim Epler just can't seem. He's got no poles, he's got no final round appearances, and no wins. Hoffman, on the other hand, has been all over the points chase.
In fact, he's currently number 2, battling Cruz Pedregon for that spot. But now he's up against Epler near lane. Another tremendous drag race. It is Hoffman, 5:11 to a 5:15. Both drivers run 2:98, but Epler's reaction time made that a very close race.
You sure can't take Jim Epler lightly. Watch the reaction time of Epler, a 4:79 to a slower 5:17. Epler had him right where he wanted him. He left him at the light. But at the far end of the racetrack is where Al Hoffman got the big power, and he was able to put Epler away by just 0.005 of a second. That's all you need to get to talk to Steve.
Boy, it's a good thing this baby had an overdrive in it.
Sure is. That was a close drag race. Old Epler there, he's tough. We're lucky. We went down to Western Auto and got some new parts last night, and they're sure working today.
5:11 to a 5:15. That's a pretty good old car race.
Yeah, that was side by side. I seen him all the way. He's a real good competitor. I enjoy racing him. So we'll be back.
You betcha, soon.
There must be an aisle somewhere in a Western Auto that I've never found before, because I've never seen any parts for a Nitro Funny car at a Western Auto.
Ah, clever man, that Al. I'll tell you, Whit Bazemore in the far lane with some help from Mobile One has had the weekend of his life. Well, so has the team in the near lane, Ray Higley. Bazemore was the #1 qualifier until the next to the last pair of cars went down this racetrack last night. And Etchels ran that 498 to take away $4,000 in Budweiser bonus money from Whit, who could use it. Higley has been around the drag racing wars forever. Roland Leong, the crew chief on this car, and that is why they ran a career best of 5:18 in qualifying at only 262 miles an hour. With Bazemore, boy, he is just flying. As I said, #2 qualifier at 5:10. He ran Gordy Boninoff in round #1. We've always said if Bazemore got a little help, he could be dangerous. We were right. Staging very carefully. Higley smokes the tires, possibly touched that center line, doesn't matter. Bazemore, oh my, a 5:13 at 297? He could win this.
Not bad for an old still photographer, huh? With Bazemore, watch as you see Higley gets out of shape, but the veteran experience allows him to keep it under control while Bazemore blasts on to the win.
But right now, here's your low qualifier, the Kendall car of Chuck Etchels, first in the 4s right here at Topeka. And he'll be up against the guy who didn't qualify all that well, Cruz Pedregon. But Pedregon in this came a lot like Don Garlits. It never mattered where Big Daddy qualified. Race day is what counted. And Bob Moran and the crew seemed to work that way with this car. Qualified only #8 at a 5:18, but round 1 stepped up with a 5:04 to put away Mark Oswald. Etchels, well, you know by now, he's qualified #1, and he ran well in round 1 at 5:06 to beat Brad Black.
And don't forget, Etchels was the winner not too long ago back at Maple Grove, so this team really kind of getting on a roll, has some momentum behind this machine here, and they could maybe get another win right here at Topeka.
Etchels deep stages, put out the top light. Oh, the racing could not be more spectacular today. It is Pedregon at a fine 5:07.290. Etchels close at 5:11 and closing at 2:99.
Here's a look at it again. As you said, Etchels deep staged him a little bit. Not a problem for Cruz as Buster hits the lights. Both cars launch. Pretty good reaction times. Not much difference there. The far end of the racetrack is where Bob Brandt was able to make up the difference for Cruz. A 5:07. 290 for Pedregon, 299 mile an hour pass for Etchels. That car is getting quicker, even though Cruz is the winner.
Cruiser, that's Vegas talk. 7-11, but you had the 7.
Yeah, you know, Steve, I'll tell you what, I thought it ran a 520 because the way it felt in the car was really spinning and all that stuff all over the place, but to run an 07 tells you it has a lot of power.
Tons.
Well, the next pair is ready to go. Another Pedregon, Tony Pedregon, the Geronimo car. Real pretty looking funny car. He's going to go up against John Force, the current Winston Points leader in funny car, who not really going to need a whole lot more to wrap up another title to add to his collection.
John Forrest qualified number 4 at a 5:11. That sounds pretty quick, but for Bernie Federle, Austin Cole, and the guys on that team, they're a little embarrassed by that number. If they're not 1 or at least 2, they figure they got some problems. Larry Minor owns that Geronimo car out of Hemet, California. Minor, of course, formerly owned the McDonald's drag racing team, and he loves guys named Pedregon. He had Cruz driving for him, and now the Cruz is with the Joe Gibbs operation. Tony Pedregon steps in. John Forrest lives to drag race. Has since he was about 18 years of age, and he couldn't have a finer team. Austin Boylan making some adjustments, adjusting the low-end idle. It's the Larry Minor crew. They don't run often, but they always run well. You recall at the U.S. Nationals, they launched a body off this car about 100 feet in the air, so this is a brand new, they call it an Oldsmobile. Looks a lot like the Camaro body that John Forrest never ran to me. A little wheel stand by Pedregon, it unloads and smokes the tires. Forrest hammers it through at 5:07. Yep, good news on the boards, 300 miles per hour.
Well, John Forrest did exactly what a champion should do. He just marched his way through Tony Pedregon. Whit Basemore has got to battle up against Al Hoffman, who has lane choice in the final 4. And Hoffman and Pedregon with Cruiser getting lane choice. Kurt Johnson lights up his big Oldsmobile, 500 cubic inches, as does Danny Coffman. And Kurt Johnson is the closest one to get into the 6-second range here at Heartland Park, Topeka this weekend. He qualified number 1 at a 7:04. But he's still a little ways away from the magic 6-second range, Steve.
I was down at the far end chatting with his dad, who had just run a 7:06, was sure he was the number 1 qualifier. And when Kurt came down, let me tell you what, his jaws got real tight. Then Steve Schmidt came behind Kurt and bumped Warren down to number 3. The man who probably will win the Winston Championship, Warren Johnson. This is his offspring, Kurt Johnson, K-Racing Oldsmobile, as Ralph said, qualified number 1. Beat Brad Klein in round number 1 in a real close race. Danny Coffman qualified number 8 just to get into the show. Means you're a hardball player. A 7:11 was his qualifying number. He ran 7:13 in the initial stanza to put Ray Franks out of competition. So it's KJ and Coffman. You can get some head games played on the starting line in this category. Let's see, they're both pre-staged. Who's going to break? They just kind of sit there. Will the starter get involved? No. Kurt Johnson in. Coffman doesn't hold him up. You can hear him shifting through the 5-speed transmission. It is Kurt Johnson. He daylights Danny Coffman. 7:10, 194 miles an hour to Danny 7:17, 192.
Well, that wasn't too bad, but we really haven't made 2 good runs today. It was shaking all the way through high gear, but we're getting the wind light, and that was Collins out of here.
Is it a little bumpy maybe in that left-hand lane for a pro stock car?
The left-hand lane's a little bumpy, right? There's a bump about 4th gear in both lanes, but the right lane after that is bumpy all the way to the finish line. I'll stay out of it.
That's right. Well, if you keep lane choice, you can stay out of it.
And there is Jerry Ekman, the Pennzoil Pontiac. The last time Ekman ran this well, George Bush was president. He is up against George Marnell out of Las Vegas, a masonry contractor that is slowly but surely getting a lot of drag racing experience. He's qualifying in the top half of the field. He's gonna win a race sooner or later. And he had a tremendous elapsed time in round 1 at 7:10 to put on Larry Maiola. Driving experience edge here has to go to Ekman. He's been doing it for several decades. George Marnell just recently joined the pro stock ranks.
Boy, is he a quick learner.
Fairly even start. It is Pontiac by a bumper. A 7:07 to a 7:10, but Marnell's jump at the start made it a very close and super drag race.
Well, we talked about Marnell being a quick learner, and he's really getting the Christmas tree figured out. A 4:77 reaction time to Ekman's 4:86. Pretty good light for both of them, but Marnell did everything he could to get the advantage off of the lights. As they started to march their way down the racetrack, this was another stupendous drag race. Boy, we're seeing a lot of close competition here this weekend, and Ekman was just able to squeak through this one with a 7:07 at 193 miles an hour to get himself down to the far end, a chance to chat with Steve Evans.
It is a really good thing that you had 707 horsepower.
707. Boy, I'll tell you what, this track has really lent itself to this car because I don't think we've had this kind of performance all year. This is just thrilling for us, believe me.
At one point there, did you think you were in trouble against Marnell?
Yeah, I certainly did. I looked over and I saw him right there, and he's usually been running so well up high, and I thought he'd squeak around me at the finish line, but I guess he did. We're just tickled to death.
You should be.
Well, the next two cars are two cars that are into the 6-second range. That's Warren Johnson right there. The other one who has broken into the 6-second range is Jim Yates. Yates' McDonald's car did it at the latest race at Maple Grove.
Even though it's still a long shot, if Jim Yates doesn't beat Warren Johnson right here, right now, he can forget any shot at a Winston Championship. Qualified number 6 at a 7:09, ran a 7:10 in round 1 to beat Barry Grant. Warren Johnson, we've already kind of recapped that for you, qualified number 3 at a 7:06. But he ran another 7:06 in round 1 earlier today to beat Ricky Smith.
Between these two drivers, Steve, they've made 15 final round appearances in 1995. These two have been absolutely awesome this season.
Let's see who's going to move in here. Warren does. Yates nudges the beam. Oh, Yates left yesterday. I mean, that is just a criminal red light. Warren Johnson wins it anyway at a 7:05, 195. Yates could only muster a 7:09, but it didn't matter. This one was over right at the start. I mean, this wasn't a gamble. This was with your eyes closed.
Well, the next pair doing their burnouts, it'll be a couple of teammates, Schmidt versus Edwards. At the far end of the racetrack, Steve talks to the winner, WJ.
Yates left so early, it might have surprised you.
I saw him way out there, and I had to wait for the tree to come on after he left. You know, it was a case that Jim wanted to leave nothing on the tree, and unfortunately it went the wrong way, and we've all done it, unfortunately.
Stunning 7:05.
Thank you very much.
Be interesting to see if that 7:05 will be strong enough for WJ to get the lane choice in the final 4. He'll match up against one of these two cars here, Mike Edwards, who's a teammate to Steve Schmidt.
And Edwards qualified with a 7:11, ran 7:09 to beat Buddy Ingersoll round 1. Steve Schmidt, the engine building king in pro stock, qualified number 2 at a 7:06, ran 7:12 to beat Battle and Bob Glidden in round number 1.
About half of the field at any pro stock main event on the national trail will have a Steve Schmidt engine in it.
Just about half the field out of his shop in Indianapolis, Indiana. Motors come up to about 7,000, sidestep the clutch, and they're off. That was not a red light. Mike Edwards just sat there in the starting line and kind of let Steve Schmidt get out of the racetrack. Oh, well, 7:07, 194 miles an hour for Steve Schmidt. It didn't matter about his reaction time because he knew exactly what was going to happen when he went up there. Let's be honest about it.
That's exactly right, Steve, and that sets us up now to look at our final 4. Ekman and Kurt Johnson, with Jerry Ekman getting the lane choice. Yeah, we asked about WJ's lane choice. He gets it over Steve Schmidt. Here's Steve.
A 7:07, you thought it might have run better.
I really looked for a 5. I think we shook just a little bit at the top of second, but I'll take it. It was an outstanding run.
I think you got Warren looking over his shoulder now at those performances.
This Dyna-Gear Oldsmobile is really hauling the mail, and we've made a lot of improvement this weekend. We're tickled.
You should be. All your engines are running well.
Stay with us. We'll be back for more on TNN. Well, the final 4 in pro stock are back to the line, ready to go. Jerry Ekman smoking the tires on his Pennzoil Pontiac, and Kurt Johnson heats up the rear tires on his Oldsmobile.
And Kurt Johnson really enjoys being on the opposite side of the ladder from his dad, because when they race with the championship points and all of that, let's face it, he's a Warren Johnson employee. In fact, he went in the tank at the U.S. Nationals. He came down in front of the grandstands with a big sign that says, "But I still have a job." The fans totally enjoyed that. Jerry Ekman, the Bill Orndorff owned Pontiac, up against this Oldsmobile. Next year, both Warren and Kurt will also be in Pontiacs, as Oldsmobile is changing their motorsports focus a little bit, and Pontiac picking up the action.
Do you think that'll slow the Johnsons down at all, changing to a different body style?
Only thing that's going to slow the Johnsons down is if you chain them to a pole. it will not make any difference. In fact, I personally prefer the aerodynamics of the Pontiac. Just look at the frontal areas. I think Warren's going to as well. Here we go. Nice move by Ekman at the starting line, and it pays off. Both drivers a 7.09 elapsed time. Bill Orndorff says, I love this. 193 for Ekman, 194 for Johnson. Great drag racing.
For the third time in 1995, Jerry Ekman will make his way to the final round, and here's how he did it. He was quicker at the lights with a 4:43 reaction time. And as they made their way through this quarter-mile run here in Topeka, Kansas, Ekman just got stronger and stronger. A 7:09, 193-mile-an-hour pass to get the win and a trip to the finals.
Two of the best engine builders drag racing has ever known. They both do their own, Johnson and Schmidt. Johnson likes to stage last. So does Schmidt. WJ's in. Here's Stevie. Could it get any better than this? All right, who won? The electronic finish line judge said Steve Schmidt beat Warren Johnson. They both run 7:06. The second race in a row with identical elapsed times.
The difference for this one was a whole shot for Steve Schmidt. A 4:65 reaction time to a slower 4:76 for Warren Johnson. As they got down through the racetrack, it was a 7:06 for both of them. Johnson was 1 mile an hour faster, but the difference, 0.06 of a second. When they came to the far end of the racetrack and got to the yellow line right there. 0.06 of a second put Steve Schmidt into the finals against Jerry Ekman, with Steve Schmidt getting the lane choice. You know, this will be a battle of 300-mile-an-hour funny cars. What, you saying? Well, yeah, sure, Al Hoffman's a 300-mile-an-hour funny car, but Whit Bazemore is having his greatest weekend ever, and he became the 6th funny car driver in history to get a 300-mile-an-hour run in the record books. He got it earlier today in round number 1 against Gordy Monin.
And was the crew ever excited? Speed doesn't pay a nickel, won't buy a cup of coffee or a National Dragster magazine, but it's something everybody identifies with. 300 miles an hour, a low 5-second run, defies all laws of man and nature. But Whit Bazemore did it. 301 to be exact in the Mobile 1 Dodge. But he really has his work cut out for him now. As Tom Anderson from Western New York lashes the body down over Al Hoffman, who hails from the state of Florida. Bazemore, we told you, he's down to his last bullet. He made a very conservative burnout. Did not hurt it there. He's got to nurse it into the finals if he can get there at all. Let's watch and listen. Bazemore leaves too soon. Al Hoffman has won this drag race, but hammers it all the way through for lane choice. A 5:16, 294 miles an hour. I think Bazemore thought this car is not as strong as it was in the earlier rounds. I'm going to have to do it myself.
He had to throw everything at Hoffman that he possibly could. This is one guy that can be a little bit more patient. John Force. Force is going up against Cruz Pedregon in another battle of 300-mile-an-hour cars. Steve?
You know, he beat himself on that deep stage and then red light, but you ran awfully well at 5:16.
Yeah, it's not quite what we wanted to run, but it spun the tires pretty good through the middle again. But it's in the final. That's what counts. We came here for Western Auto and Slick 50 and Craftsman. I mean, this is their race. Without their tools, we wouldn't even be able to work on the car.
If you lose lane choice, does that upset you?
No, the lanes are pretty equal. In all honesty, I'd really like to run the right lane better.
You may get it.
Well, there you see Larry Frazier, Coy Gibbs, Jason McCullough, some of the crew that work on this car of Cruz Pedregon. Tom Fry took a look at Cruz and his affinity for the NFL.
Cruz Pedregon does whatever he can to help the team win. Hey, if it's work on the race car a little bit, he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. But the one thing that he does do is try to get a little bit of luck on his side. Ever since Englishtown, this has been the lucky helmet for the Cruiser. It's that Oakland Raiders helmet. I'm not sure Joe Gibbs knows that he's wearing it, but so far, it's been pretty lucky for our guy, Cruz Pedregon.
Of course, Joe Gibbs, who owns that car, as you look at Austin Coyle, the former coach of the Washington Redskins.
Now, John Forrest let showmanship get the better of him on the burnout. You may have noticed a long, old kind of John Forrest burnout from the old days. Austin Coyle, the crew chief, was just shaking his head. He did not like that one bit. Not that it'll make a difference, but that wasn't Austin's game plan. Oh! Possibly the greatest funny car race in history. For the first time, winner and loser top 300 miles an hour, and just like Pro Stock, identical elapsed times, 5.07.
Boy, if you're a fan of the NHRA, have you hit a home run on this weekend in Topeka? Every class has had spectacular racing, and Cruiser and Force didn't let us down at all with the funny cars. Reaction times were great, ETs were great, and top speeds even better. Cruiser gets the win with this one, a 507, 300 miles an hour. He's got lane choice against Al Hoffman.
We are ready right now for the final four in Top Fuel Eliminator. It'll be Mike Dunn up against Pat Austin. There was some concern that Mike Dunn and Darrell Gwynn might not even be able to get this car to the starting line. As Bob Fry said, if you could break it, they broke it in the second round. But they didn't break their spirit, because here they are to face off with Pat Austin. All right, Mike Dunn against Pat Austin. No one's really sure, including Jerry Gwynn, who just walked away, what that car from Florida is capable of. Austin has been erratic as well, has had some luck. Remember, Blaine Johnson had him used up, and suddenly his car just quit. Elapsed time and speed are relative. A close race is always fun to watch. A 492 for Dunn, a 497 for Austin. Austin tickles 300 miles an hour at 299. Done a little slower at 295, but Mike Dunn goes to the finals.
It looked like Austin and his crew were a little uneasy getting the car ready and set to go into the staging lights, and Mike Dunn and Darrell Gwynn's bunch really did a fine job of putting this car back together, because when they needed it, it performed just the way they needed it. Mike Dunn, a 492, 295 miles an hour to get the win to make it to the finals.
Eddie Hill, 58 years of age, in tremendous shape. Scott Coletta, you saw that vicious burnout. Coletta, he doesn't drive this car, he attacks with it. It's like a weapon.
Scott Coletta's had no problem getting to the final rounds. He's had 6 appearances there, and 4 times he's taken the trophy home with him.
And he's well on his way to a $200,000 payday. Eddie Hill knows what it's like. A few years ago, he captured the title. It's worth more money now, though. Scott's timing is excellent. His crew chief, Dick LaHaye, is God right now in the fuel pits. All that clutch dust out of Scott Coletta's car, and it was to perfection. A 4.81 second elapsed time for this time of the day. Dead on. 297 Eddie Hill. He just missed it a little bit. 495, but he didn't smoke the tires. He'll be smiling anyway.
Well, Steve mentioned the mystical powers of Dick LaHaye, and boy, did they show up again here. As you said, the heat of the day, this is one of the toughest parts of the afternoon to get the car to work right. And this one was awesome from beginning to end. A 471 reaction time, a 481 ET, and 297 miles an hour for Scott Coletta. Guess who's got lane choice? He'll match up with Mike Dunn. Steve?
I think Dick LaHaye called that one perfectly. A 481. It was hotter. The track wasn't quite as good.
Yeah, he backed her up, and I shut off a little early. Didn't ever saw him out there anywhere, and just ran under the first light and collect them round wins.
And more of those Winston points. I think you may have enough now.
Yeah.
Never enough.
Never enough.
Kind of like money.
Yep.
Bob?
The old expression is that many hands make light work. Well, in the Western Auto team camp, they've got one hand less to work with this weekend. Helen Hoffman took a little bump at Indianapolis, thought it was just a bump or a strain, but Wednesday before Heartland Park, Topeka, found out that she actually had broken her left wrist. So she's got a cast on it, but you can see it hasn't slowed her down, or the team, or their sense of humor. I don't think it looks anything like her.
Looks more like you. Okay, here comes the Pro Stock final round. Stay with us from Heartland Park, Topeka, the Sears Craftsman National.
Welcome back to Heartland Park, and look at Steve Schmidt in the red car changing lanes at the very last second as he had lane choice, and you have that option, Steve, as you roll up there. If at the last second you want to change, you can force your opponent, like Jerry Ekman, to the other lane.
That's right, but once the cars are actually started, then you're committed to whatever lane you've chosen. Ekman, he doesn't care. He's having more fun today racing than I've seen him in a long, long time.
Steve Schmidt does have one win. He got the one at Columbus that you talked about where he picked up the win on Monday. And that was a much trickier deal than figuring out this racetrack here this afternoon. And I got a funny feeling that Schmidt, with all the engine knowledge that he has probably got the best combination for this final round. Ekman at this point, I think, Steve, is running more on momentum and good luck and karma and all that sort of stuff.
I think Ekman and crew expected Schmidt to put them in the near lane. They may have set the car up for that lane that has fewer bumps. Let's see. Something breaks on the Ekman car. It will be Steve Schmidt's day. Another 707, 194 miles an hour. The team from Indianapolis, well, the celebration has already started.
Well, Steve Schmidt hasn't made too many final round appearances this year, but every time he's been there, he's gotten the job done. 2 final rounds, 2 wins. He changes lanes on Ekman, gets a good jump on him, and has a big helping hand from the Pennzoil car as the Pontiac brakes right about here. Something lets go in the Firebird, and Schmidt just motors on to get the win with a 707 at 194 miles an hour.
The 707 has won it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. This Doctor Oldsmobile obviously has ran tremendously all day. I want to thank all the guys back at the shop. I always forget to thank them, and they're really the most important part of this deal. They're the ones that work 70, 80 hours a week to make this deal happen.
Have a good time tonight.
Thank you, partner.
Okay.
Well, the one thing Steve Schmidt did was he helped himself out in the points chase. He picked up a few more in the chase for the title, but WJ pretty much has it all locked up with just 2 events left on the schedule coming up at Dallas, and then, of course, the season finale here on TNN at Pomona. Al Hoffman and Cruz Pedregon, the funny car final.
You know, one of the key ingredients to having good, close racing is obviously the racetrack. We've had that at Topeka because the lanes are equal. The starting line is as manicured as any I've ever seen. There's no divots in it. The rubber lays down flat. Smoother than your kitchen floor. Al Hoffman using that brake on his right, the only brake in the car. It's a hand brake. It brakes on all 4 wheels, but only about 25% of it on the front, if that. Cruz Pedregon, well, he is no stranger to final rounds this year. He won the U.S. Nationals. He attained a speed of 304 miles an hour there. He is now consistently right at the 300-mile-an-hour mark, and that says a lot. If you've got that kind of power at the big end, Tom Anderson will tell you as he checks the pressure that you don't have to get so aggressive off the starting line. There's a lot of ways to make a lap's time. The best and safest way is to make it from half-track on when the car is hooked.
They have done a great job of that themselves this year. This is one team that's been right at that 300 mark since the beginning of the year. As you mentioned, Cruz and them have found it since about the halfway point of the season. Bob Brandt and Larry Frazier have worked hard on that car to get it right. This Hoffman bunch, they've been there since the beginning, and I think they had force shook up more this year than ever before in the points chase.
Yeah, they led the points at one time during the season, and Al Hoffman's wife Helen has proven they can play hurt as well. Pre-stage funny car final. Hoffman went in deep trying to upset Cruz. Hoffman got a little bit out of the groove, and it is Pedregon 5:06. Again, topping the triple century mark at 3:01. Hoffman trails at 5:14, 296. Ralph, in the replay, let's watch Hoffman. I think he maybe just got a little out of the groove.
Keep your eyes on the Western Auto car in the near lane. Let's see what happens as the cars launch. They're pretty even out of the lights. Hoffman actually a little bit quicker with a 430 reaction. That there it goes. Do you see it? It started to dip over onto that left wheel, and when it did that, Cruiser motored on by with that 5:06. Another big 3:01. That Raiders helmet shines bright in the Topeka sun as a winner comes off.
And Chris Pedregon won this race much like the Oakland Raiders of old won Super Bowls. He just tore them apart, limb by limb by limb. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot. See, boy, these guys are taking shots at me on that tree deep staging and stuff, but, well, I have to tell them a lot of people have done that to me, but it ain't going to work, guys. But I just want to thank McDonald's and everyone. Let me tell you something. This car came in here with a lot of expectations, and we didn't live up to them in qualifying. All of a sudden, race day, Bob Brandt, Larry Frazier, everybody, I want to thank Lee Beard again for he's staying involved with us here. McDonald's, Interstate, everybody, EDS, thanks.
You weren't bad yourself, my young friend.
Well, 300 miles an hour takes a lot of wind out of you. Here's a look at the point standings now. You can see four still up on top, and Cruz Pedregon and Al Hoffman will battle it out for number 2 as we march towards Pomona.
The Top Fuel final round. Mike Dunn against Scott Coletta. For Mike, it has been an arduous afternoon. For Scott Coletta, it has been almost perfect throughout the entire 3 days. The quickest driver in history after his 5.66 with a 0, even though he didn't back it up. He'll get all the headlines and prestige that goes with it. Mike Dunn, well, they had all those problems after round 2. They got to make a tune-up run on that engine getting through the final 4, and now it should be as sharp as Frank Bradley can make it.
These guys are about even as far as how they've done is making it to the final round and then winning. Scott's made it to the final round 6 times, and he's got 4 wins. Now, on the other side, Mike Dunn's made it to the final round 4 times, and he's won 3 of them. So they're pretty even as far as getting there and then capitalizing on it and taking home the trophy.
All in all, this has been one magnificent event. Beautiful blue skies today. As good a racetrack as you could ask for. The closest racing we've seen in all of 1995. Just primo. And this will put a fitting end to the Sears Craftsman Nationals. Mike Dunn never really in it. Scott Coletta, a picture-perfect 475. 295 miles an hour. Mike Dunn trails at a 5:14. I think that's exactly what Dick LaHaye expected that car to do.
Boy, is he excited as he climbs out of the car. Dick LaHaye did it again for Scott. He's got a tremendous feel for what these racetracks will take, and he dialed up another solid run for Coletta. But watch Mike Dunn's car. Take a look at the exhaust kicking out of the pipe. See it popping and pumping? That's losing horsepower. That's losing a drag race. Scott Coletta gets the win, 475, 295 miles an hour.
I think we can tell the folks up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina at RJR they can get a head start on writing the checks. A 475, exactly what you wanted.
Awesome. I tell you what, Dicko is incredible. I can't say enough about him. The guys, Dad, American International, Casey Powell, Sequin, Suburban, my little boy, Corey. Yes.
It's a shame you didn't get the record. That's the only thing you left on the table.
Yeah, well, you know, there's still a couple races left, and it looks like Dick's on to something, so we'll try again.
Shake my hand.
Well, you can do the math. Corey Mack is probably not going to be able to catch Coletta with just 2 events left to go in the 1995 Winston Championship Trail. The 7th annual NHRA Sears Craftsman Nationals has been a fabulous weekend if you're a drag racing fan. Before we leave, let's take one more look at it.
About as good as it gets in NHRA Winston Championship drag racing. For Ralph Shaheen and Bob Fry, I'm Steve Evans saying so long from the Heartland. American Sports Cavalcade is a production of Diamond P Sports in association with the Nashville Network.